Alright everyone, just when it seemed that a year of non-stop propaganda and browbeating was actually going to give the Democrats a couple of House seats or something, the Democrats now in the latest poll, and this was a CNN poll of all places, so you know that it's cooked in favor of the Democrats anyway, by at least a couple of points. It shows that the Democratic advantage in the generic ballot over the Republicans, it's beginning to decline now. And after this debt shutdown that we've currently got, which is basically a debate over daca, you can look for a little preliminary glimpse of what you're going to get after the tax plan kicks in. Only that'll be considerably larger. See, the thing is this. The Democrats speak... The problem with the Democrats is kind of similar to the problem the Republicans had. The Republicans were suffering under a schismatic party in which the core of the party, like the neocons, like the Romneyites, the McCainites, people like that who believe in proxy war and high taxation and disarmament and all the bad things in life. They were out of step with the rising, the younger Republicans, for one, the arguably slightly socially more liberal Republicans, number two, the ethno-Republicans, number three, like the rise of the early new right as it sort of begins fracturing off. They had a schismatic issue, and so they weren't able to actually energize their whole base because there's nothing for them to congeal around. You had all these micro issues. You had the Ron Paul Republicans, the 10-15% of the party, that has nothing really in common with a Mitt Romney. They couldn't be further apart from a Mitt Romney. You've got like the David Duke stuff and all of these different groups. And so what had to happen is you had to have a Trump-style candidate, which is why another reason to suspect at the time that he would win, a Trump-style candidate who was able to appease at least most of these groups and energize them at the same time. And he did. He did this successfully. The Democrats have been suffering because they still have a schismatic movement. What happened is because they attempted to rig the primary and then got caught out in it, as Bernie Sanders would tell you if he weren't probably under a non-disclosure agreement or something. What happens at that point is that the Democrats aren't capable of energizing or congealing their party. They still suffer under their schismatic movement. And now they're screwing themselves further because the immigration debate, I think, and the women's rights, the Me Too stuff as well, is going to keep the party off kilter for quite some time to come. Here's why. Think about what daca represents. The same Democrats that fundamentally gave Trump the election, the Rust Belt business Democrats, and then a small number of sort of Reagan Democrats in maybe Florida and places like that, flipped heavily in favor of Trump. Why? Because they perceive the Democratic Party as being more interested in globalism and illegal immigrants than the native working and middle-class population. They see them as elitist snobs who care about urban centers and the coasts and don't really care about Great Lakes territory or the flyover states. That's the death knell of the Democrats as able, by the way, to even cobble together 270 electoral points unless they're facing someone so hideously compromised that they begin losing traction in solid red states. Trump's not having that problem. Trump's popularity is abnormally high still, to this day, in some of what were the most competitive, important states for the Democrats to target. Why do you think I keep saying that Trump is still more likely than not going to be reelected if he runs in 2020? It has nothing to do with, Trump's national support is down. It doesn't matter. Yeah, he has 0% support in California. The Electoral College exists, so it doesn't matter. It matters, the competitive states are what matters. When you see that the new competitive states are states that 4 years ago were 10 points in the blue, shouldn't that be a problem for the Democrats? Like, aren't they going to realize that that's going to become an issue? When the midterms come, Trump is going to say, hey, look, the Democrats are so dumb they shut down the government because they wanted to shield illegals. They didn't care about kids under chip, which is, that's only a half-truth. In all honesty, this is Republican propaganda, oddly enough. But it is effective. Like, people have gobbled the argument down, revealing that it's propaganda at this point probably doesn't even have an impact. People have made up their minds. So the Democrats, they don't care about that. They don't care about military funding or veterans and stuff like that. And Trump is going to ram this down people's throats. He's going to tweet about this constantly until the midterms. That and the fact that the economy is doing well. That's a winning combo. Democrats cast off as a party that doesn't care about anything other than the illegal immigrants. That's not a good strategy to employ. The Democrats have almost, by the way, voluntarily owned the title being fed to them by Trump. They think it's a brand of honor. They come out and say, yes, we care about the illegals. That's not the point, though. You're not understanding the perception behind reality. You're not understanding how people perceive you. They perceive you as being so inordinately interested in people who are not fundamentally due to be in this country at all. They are not fundamentally owed anything by the United States in a legal or moral sense. You are favoring them over poor families here that actually they vote. That's going to be a problem. It's just like you favored like already blue urban areas because of the moral grandstanding of the Obama Democrats. They alienated people in small town America. Now, Romney couldn't do anything about that. Small town America looked at Mitt Romney and said, oh, yeah, another generic, boring machine politician with a lot of money. But then they saw Trump and they said, well, Trump is anti-PC like me. And he wants to build a wall. That sounds good. And he wants to deport people that, are fucking the economy up. Now, that's not what actually happened to the Rust Belt. It's more of a southern border problem for the most part. But it does play into that general strategy, that general perception behind the reality. And the big part, and this is where the Republicans, like the Trumpites, are absolutely true, and the Democrats are absolutely almost suicidal as a party, is that the Rust Belt never experienced an Obama recovery. Small town America in the Rust Belt that was, it was literal swing territory. The urban areas are blue, the farming communities are red, and then in between you got little towns in some of the suburban districts that are competitive. They began to lead more and more heavily red through the campaign. Hillary Clinton ignores this, doesn't even want to talk about it, and basically casts those people off as racists. Oh, these evil white, small towners that want their jobs back. Oh, how idiously racist can you be, says Hillary Clinton. When she makes the deplorable comments, what voting blocks do you think were being referred to? Specifically, those voters. I wonder why they didn't vote for Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. I wonder why the Democrats, despite facing off against someone who for months they cast off as really, really weak, really, really stupid, didn't know how to even speak, basically. I wonder why they lost so many statewide elections, too. Bunch of governor's seats, a bunch of houses and Senate seats within the states. The fact is that Trump needs to gain a couple of approval points before the midterms for the Democrats not to be able to capitalize upon his low approval at all. It won't matter at that point, because that'll drag the generic ballot up in favor of the Republicans. The gap is not horribly substantial anyway when you consider that a lot of those seats are basically safe. The Republicans can have a 5-10 point deficit and still win half of those seats. The Democrats aren't going to be able to take back the House with those numbers. It's not going to happen, dude. And their chances just went down further because they're basically owning the line fed to them by Trump and the Republicans on the shutdown, which is, hey, they're shutting it down because of DACA. They're shutting it down because they don't want to strike a deal. Trump, though, is willing to strike a deal. Look, here's him shaking hands with Schumer, but now Schumer says, no deal, ha ha ha, we can't reform the immigration system. He is going to hold this over their head. And fundamentally, I hate to say this to the Trump fans, Trump is basically the one shutting it down in that sense. Like, the Democrats are holding out, it's their fault too, but in a primordial sense, he is using it as leverage. Absolutely, it's a grand strategy, it's a good one. I, by the way, happen to agree with his premise, which is, hey, if I can get some of the immigration reform, wall funding, sanctuary cities, whatever, and tie it to a short-term budget deal, why not? Why not at least try it? That's not a bad strategy. Look, most of the time, for most people, the government shutdown will not affect their day-to-day lives. That being said, though, the Democrats are the ones predominantly worried. Look, the Republicans are practically the axe the government party at this point. Like, Trump is like, I'm going to tear up regulations, reform the tax code, I'm going to, mysteriously argue both against and for FISA at different times. By the way, keep the hashtag release the memo going. The Democrats are the party that's like, oh, government is sacred, government's wonderful, we need more of it. So it's going to look a little bit strange at some point, I think, to the center-left constituency that defected to Trump in the first place. By the way, they're probably going to vote for him again regardless of what he does. At least he reformed the tax code, they'll say. Hey, I got an extra $1,000 this year on my salary that I got to keep for myself. What the fuck do I care about all this other crap? Country is still here, no nuclear war, things are okay. And we've already seen that the kind of covert war, I may not like it. I may oppose Tillerson's sort of serious statements. The average person, though, doesn't even consider it to be a war as long as it's not on TV every day. I think that's a negative thing, but it plays right into Trump's hand, because then he could say, oh, yeah, I'm not proclaiming that we need to nuke Syria or anything like Hillary Clinton wanted to bomb Iran just like McCain did. I wouldn't be surprised if he trots that out during 2020 or even in the midterms. And some of these Republicans, you're going to see one thing within the Republican Party that'll strike some as strange. Republicans that are up for re-election in areas Trump lost probably won't want him to talk about their campaigns. Republicans in areas that Trump commanded heavily during the election, though, will want him to come and speak for them. They'll want him to come aboard. They'll say, please, Mr. Trump, hold a rally here and energize the crowd, and it'll be great and I'll win. And he'll say, okay, but I want your vote on such and such a thing in the future. And he'll probably get it. Oh, he'll have, half a dozen people within the Republican Party in Congress, additional to the allies he has now, on board with him. And it'll be pretty funny. And this will include both newcomers and old guard Republicans, including people that he's sparred with, probably. It would be really funny if somebody who very visibly didn't like Trump had to then kiss ring and kneel before him in order to get campaign help because that area went for Trump during the election. I don't know if we're going to see that, but it's possible. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, you've got to realize they may look at Trump and say he's unpopular, and he's around 40 or 41% at this point, the low 40s, which is survivable, by the way. It's not hideous. It's not Jimmy Carter or George W. post-Katrina levels like the Democrats wish that it was. They wish that they could convince the country that Trump was like, basically a Sieg-heiling Nazi, and he screwed everything that moved. By the way, the Stormy Daniels thing, I guess it had absolutely no impact whatsoever on his approval. In fact, it might have arguably ticked up a little bit because the Democrats look like hypocrites because of the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky stuff, and his other various less consensual affairs in addition to that. It's going to be really, really funny to watch the midterms because the Democrats don't just have to deal with the fact that Trump's approval is still at least middling. They also have to deal with Democrats' approval isn't high. As a party, it's at a record low, or at least a low since the Carter administration. It's not exactly great. A 50-year low, roughly. Let's say half a century low. It's quite a time period to best yourself in. They've got the daca thing that they've basically owned as a party. That's not going to look good come the midterms. And the electoral map still is skewed in favor of Republicans. Many of the Republicans that are up are in safe red seats. It would be difficult for the Democrats to flip them. Many of the Democrats that are up, nonetheless, are in areas that Trump ended up winning. That's not good for the Democrats. More of the Democrat seats are up, so there's about a 2-to-1 advantage for the Republicans there, too. Now, they can't just sit there and be complacent and say, oh, we got it made, and so we don't have to campaign hard. No, they have to do the opposite. They should pull out all stops and hope that they can actually knock a few seats out under the Democrats and actually gain a little bit more support. Can you imagine the meltdown within the DNC if the Democrats actually managed to lose a Senate seat? Oh, can you imagine what would happen? It would demoralize them so severely it would be almost unthinkable that they win in 2020. Paul Ryan should get his act together and immediately begin organizing to try to do that. That's exactly what should be done. By the way, campaign on money, especially in any seats that are up in small-town flyover America. Anything outside of the coastal or urban regions of the country should be targeted with a money message by the Republicans. That would be my advice to them. On other places, you can do the moral haranguing thing, but money and immigration are the two winning issues. The Republicans, ultimately, they want to make it about, well, we're the less racist party, the Dems are the real racist, or some crazy shit like that. Or, yeah, we're basically Democrats anyway, but look, our candidate, loves Jesus more. That's been their campaign strategy since the Reagan administration ended. It doesn't work anymore. What they need to do is say, hey, we want to give you back your money, tear up regulations. We're actual conservatives now as opposed to fucking fake neocon so-called conservatives at this point. And by the way, no, we're not going to be hamstrung by the Democrats saying that we're immoral or bad or wrong because we say we need to enforce immigration law. Why don't you just, for ads, have the Republicans thought of this? Why don't you take footage of Clinton and Obama sounding a lot like candidate Trump talking about immigration, splice it together with a voiceover saying, oh, the Democrats used to understand common sense. Now we're the only ones that do. The country used to understand the concept of national sovereignty. Now it fucking doesn't care anymore. You know, obviously you wouldn't put that in your ad, but, you know, just something to that effect. It'll be effective. Trust me. It'll work. And Trump can flesh it out. Look, he made it work on a national stage against someone who raised almost $2 billion and called him all sorts of names, attacked his fans, and had the blessing of every major corporate and bank endeavor in the whole fucking world. Clinton was the first truly multinational presidential candidate, the first truly fully globalized political juggernaut that we've seen, and she got laid waste to. That's a good thing for the Republican Party if it's willing to embrace the kind of mild populism Trump offers. It doesn't need to go way out into the far right. It just needs to actually be conservative in order to win back a hell of a lot of some millions of voters in flyover America that'll buff up the party. Then again, as someone who's not a Republican, I mean, ultimately I'm ambivalent. It's about issues for me. But when I look at the issues Trump raises, they are better than the issues raised by the Republicans, you know, as little as 4 years ago, or any Democrats even today. There are no, I mean, Kucinich as a true progressive I have more respect for Kucinich, who is trying to run for the governorship of Ohio, and if I was there, I would definitely vote for him. I have more respect for Dennis Kucinich, who's a little bit nutty and calls himself like a Sanders progressive. More respect for him than anyone in the DNC. More respect for him than some missing link candidate like Gillibrand pretending to be on the further left even though she's been a corporate candidate all this time, pretending to be the next glass ceiling cracker, or a Kamala or Oprah or any of these others. Hell, Oprah, I have more respect for her than I do a lot of the people that are actually within the Democratic Party just because she's never been a politician. Now, also, I think she's more sane. Look, she was friends with Trump. She probably, her real platform, if she were being honest, probably wouldn't even be that far from his. Maybe on immigration. Everything else should probably sound a lot like him. Just a standard sort of New York, centrist Democrat who nonetheless fiscally has some conservative tendencies. That's about all. Peace out.